I want to kind of step back because we've been going through the book of Acts, and the book of Acts has been a wonderful message, and it's definitely been a long journey because it takes quite some time to go through the book of Acts. But it's been a good journey, but I kind of want to roll it all together in one way today. And so I want to share that, but before I do, there's this expression that we have back home when you go into a small like country church or whatever, and you got a pastor that starts, kind of just delivering the message, yelling at you and everything, and he has a message and they call it just stepping on your toes, right? Have you ever heard anybody say, this message or that pastor really stepped on my toes, or this message is going to step on your toes? There's good potential that this message might step on your toes, okay? This message might prick your heart a little bit. And if it does, then good. I'll take that up with you at the end because it's supposed to, okay? There are some things that as we were going through the book of Acts that probably should have stood out for us. And I want to be clear this morning about that. This morning, I want you to understand that at the beginning of the year, back like November, December, I asked you guys, and you can think about it this morning as well, that if you had a piece of paper and a pencil, I asked you guys to write down your goals for 2021, right? And then even further, if you'd like, for 5 years into the future, 10 years into the future and everything, write down what you would like to see. No boundaries, nothing holding you back. What would you like to see? And here's pretty much what we learned as we looked at the church, the early church, and we looked at how we're being called to do things and everything, that we have a purpose. That's basically what we learned. We have a purpose as individuals. We have a purpose as a church together, as family. We have a purpose. That's what we have from God. And it's one purpose. So no matter what it is that's in your mind or what you would have wrote down on that piece of paper, if it's not that one purpose, you will never be fulfilled. You will never be satisfied. You'll never be complete no matter what's on that piece of paper. If you wrote those goals out and that piece of paper was, I wish that I was in the most perfect relationship, okay? The most perfect relationship that there ever was. I love this guy, I love this girl, I love them so much that I want them to be perfect. And it started happening, right? It starts happening. They are doing your laundry and washing the dishes. You don't even have to get up out of bed in the morning. They pick you up like a spatula picks up eggs. You know what I'm saying? Like they got you every morning, right? They're taking care of you to the most extreme, and it's just love in every regard. Every action is kindness. Every action makes your life better and everything. And you reach the end of your life and you were in just such a perfect relationship that all of a sudden that the theaters and literature and all the schools, they don't even know who Romeo and Juliet is anymore. Now you're the gold standard. You and this person are the gold standard, and any time that romance is talked about, it's you. That's how perfect your relationship is. Even if that winds up being true, and that's never been true, you won't be complete. If you write down on that list, I'd like to own my own business. I'd like to start my own business. And all of a sudden, that business, whatever it is, all of a sudden you're bedazzling everything, and you decided, you know what's going to be popular? I'm going to bedazzle fly swatters. That's going to become popular, right? And all of a sudden, unbeknownst to us, that's an amazing idea, and everybody's buying them because when they pop flies, they want it to look good, you know? So you got this business and it's going great, and all of a sudden, not only are you providing for each other and whoever is with you, you're not only taking care of yourself, but now you're starting to be able to take care of all your extended family and friends. And not only do you have enough money to do that, you're actually pouring back into your community, so your business is sustaining you, your family, friends, and it's making your community a better place. you're changing the world. Your employees are recommending you for awards. At the end of your life, you still won't be complete. If it's your career and you want to be the CEO and you're the best one in the world, if it's education and you know every single thing in the world, if it's your children and you pour into your children and you have the perfect amount of children, whatever it is, whatever your number is, but you're like, I want 2 children, right? Or I want 50 children, whatever your number is, Douglas, okay? It doesn't matter what your number is, but I have 2 children and everything works out. They never fight with each other. They go through schools. It's not A's. They form a new grade for your kids because your kids are amazing. They're better than everybody else. Everybody else cries when they're around because they're amazing. They're amazing. They have all the great grades in the world. They go through college. They're done with college at 11. Okay, and all of a sudden it's your goal and your desire to raise them into perfect children. One of them becomes president, one of them becomes vice president, and then they switch out after the terms. The other one's president, the other one's vice president. They're amazing. There's never been more amazing kids. Doesn't matter. Even if you raise your kids to that standard, you won't be complete unless you're living out your purpose. There will always be something wrong. There will always be something missing in your life. Doesn't matter if you hit every single thing else in your life, because you were created for one purpose and one purpose only, and that was to glorify God. That's our purpose. That's why we were created, is to glorify God. And all the other stuff in our life, it's to come along to glorify God. What we do in our career, if it's matching our purpose, it's to glorify God. How we raise our children, to glorify God. Our businesses are given to us for a purpose, to glorify God. Our relationships are going to be better and are there for the purpose of glorifying God. Now, how do we glorify God? And that's what we were talking about in the book of Acts. How do we glorify God? By obeying God. It's through obedience to God that we glorify God. And God's called us to be kingdom-minded, not to grow just to grow ourselves, but to edify the body, that's the family that's in here, and to be about the kingdom. That's what God's called us to do. So today, in wrapping that idea up, I want to talk about something out of 2 Corinthians. And today's title of the sermon is called Jar of Clay. In 2 Corinthians 4, 6 through 7, it says, for God, who said, let light shine out of darkness, has shone in our hearts to give the light of the knowledge of the glory of God in the face of Jesus Christ. But we have this treasure in jars of clay to show that the surpassing power belongs to God and not to us. The surpassing treasure, this treasure, it's really this mission. It's the gospel. It's the truth of Christ that we're supposed to share. We're carrying it around in these jars of clay, and we're the jars of clay. We're the jars of clay. We have been called to do that. Now, when we don't do that, what's the reason? Now, you'll never hear this come out of anybody's mouth. It may be the truth, but you'll never hear this come out of anybody's mouth. I've been going to church. I believe in God. I know that God wants me to be His witness. I know God wants us to join Him in mission. I believe in the Great Commission and all that jazz. But I don't care. You'll never hear anybody say, I don't care. You won't ever hear anybody say, well, I believe in God and I believe in Jesus and I believe that Jesus stood before the disciples and said, follow after me and then go out and make disciples. I believe all that. I believe the Bible. But it's not important. You'll never hear anybody say that. Not in a Christian church. Their actions might be saying it louder than anything else. It might be clear as a crystal, but they'll never say it. What we say a lot of times is this: I can't do that. There's somebody else that can do that that's better at that. Or I can't because I'm not the right person, or you don't know how messed up my life is. I'm broken. And that's why I can't do that. Then you'll hear that kind of stuff. Like, well, when we're talking about evangelism, somebody better can do that. The pastor and them, they can do that. That's what they're called to do. You know, they're called to go do that. Or when you talk about talking to a neighbor, you don't realize that I don't like talking to people. People suck. Right? You don't know that about me, but that's how I feel. You don't. So somebody else that's better at that. Well, what would I say? How do I say that? I grew up here in I grew up here in St. Petersburg. Everybody around here in St. Petersburg knows that I used to be this person. They know I used to party. They know I used to go out and do drugs. They know everything about me. They know that my parents had to bail me out of jail every weekend and everything. How am I going to go and talk about church to them? How am I going to tell them about God? How's that going to come out? I'm too broken for that. There's other people that grew up in church since they're 5 years old that's never made a mistake in their life. They're the ones that can do that. There's people out there that enjoy talking to people. Let them do that. You know, that's what comes out of our mouths. It can't be me because I'm not equipped. So today's message is jars of clay. We're all jars of clay. Every single one of us is a jar of clay. That's what Paul was saying. We're jars of clay carrying around this important thing. And here's the cool thing about jars of clay. The first thing I want to point out is they're common. They're common. God doesn't seek for you to be an exceptional, extraordinary person. God knows exactly who you are, and He seeks you to be you. We're common, all of us. Next week, we're going to talk about King David. And I love the story of King David. We're not going to talk about this part of his story. But wasn't it cool how David was chosen? How if you were to go into that family and you wanted any of them to do anything, David would have been the last one to be chosen, the runt of the litter. You know, like he didn't look kingly at all. He didn't look like he was going to amount to anything. And out of all the brothers, they're parading him through it. No, not him, not him, not him. God's chosen him. That's pretty cool. But there's another one that I wanted to concentrate on this morning that really stands out to me. And that's Gideon. Gideon in the Old Testament was one of the judges, one of the military judges. But Gideon in the Old Testament was somebody that I think I can relate to. I think that a lot of us can relate to. But if you want to boil it down into its simplest, is here we are in this period of time where the Midianites, they were convincing the children of Israel, they were convincing them that their gods were more powerful than God. And they were convincing them with their magicians and stuff. They were convincing them that this was true. So the children of Israel were starting to worship the Midianite gods, and God turned His favor away from them. And all of a sudden, we go to the story of Gideon, this ordinary guy who's, we find, just complaining. He's like, well, this is crap. There's so much mess going on around me. Where's God at in this? Right? Where's God at in this situation? Where's the God of our fathers in this situation? Where are our people like Abraham and Jacob and Isaac? And what is God doing in this situation? And God speaks to him. He says, you'll do. You'll do. I'll work through you. In Judges 6, 14 through 15, it says, "And the Lord turned to him and said, Go in this might of yours and save Israel from the hand of Midian. Do not I send you?" And this is Gideon replying, and he said to him, "Please, Lord, how can I save Israel? Behold, my clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the least in my father's house." My clan's the weakest, I'm the least in my family, I am nobody. I am nobody. And then you know what Gideon did? After God chose him, Gideon was like, this is impossible. Like, I am nobody. I can't carry out what you want. You want somebody else. You want somebody like you had in Abraham. You want somebody like you had in Isaac. You want somebody like you had in Jacob. You don't want me. I'm weak. I'm nobody. And so there's a mistake. There's been a mistake, God. And here's what we're going to do, okay? Here's what we're going to do. And why God didn't smite him down, I have no earthly idea, besides he just wanted to use. And Gideon's like, if this is true, then prove to me that you really are calling me, right? Like, prove to me. You got to show me that you are. I'm going to lay this out. I'm going to lay this sheep's wool out. I'm going to lay this nice little sheep's wool out. And if it's wet from dew, then yes, you want me. If it's not wet from dew, the next time, yes, you want me. And then just, God, it can't be me. It can't be me. Don't we look around at our lives right now and go, what is going on around us? Are we no different than Gideon when he was propped up against the post going, where's God in this situation? Do we not look at our communities and our families and our country, and are we not doing the same thing? Where's God at right now? Where's the revival that we desperately need? We're all common, and God loves using common people. Secondly, jars of clay are fragile. I'm a pretty dramatic person, but my wife has plans for some small little plant, so she made me promise I wouldn't bust this, but otherwise, whew. All right. But jars of clay are fragile. They're very fragile, as we are. You know, it's easy to look around and go, I can't do this. You don't know what's going on in my life. You don't know what kind of strain I'm under. You don't know what kind of pressure I'm under. You don't know what kind of temptations I have in my life, my addictions in my life. You don't know anything about me. You don't know what I deal with under the surface. Here's what I do know, is that in some form or fashion, we're all hanging by a string, and we're all very fragile. I know that to be true. Psalm 73:26 says, "My flesh and my heart may fail, but God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever." David's saying here that my flesh and my heart may fail, that I am weak. We are weak. Men are weak. Women are weak. We're weak in so many different ways. And that's okay. That's okay. There's an encouragement in that. I know that that doesn't sound like it's encouragement, but there's an encouragement in that. I want to be careful how I do stuff, because sometimes I'll share stuff and it's the only way that I know how to do it, because I want to get the message across. And so sometimes when I'm preparing stuff and I share stuff, I don't want to romanticize or make something sound like it's not bad. So I want to be super clear, right? Because I'm about to talk about something in my past about fighting. And when I talk about it, I'm using it as an example, but I want you to understand what fighting is. When two people get physical and they fight, it is the simpleton's way, it's the fool's way to handle an argument, okay? There's nothing good about it. It's stupidity at its highest level. It is. So I don't want to make light of that. When I was in Hawaii, and I was in the military, I was stupid at the highest level. But me and my friends would go out, and I had a couple of people that were in my unit that were my friends, and there was this one guy, Mason. He, tall, lanky guy. I mean, a lot taller than me, but like couldn't put on weight for nothing in the world. You know what I'm saying? Like this guy could eat and eat and eat and eat, but he couldn't put on an ounce of weight. Tall, lanky, but greatest guy to be around in the world. Easy to talk to. Always there. If you needed a favor, if you needed somebody to pick you up, if you needed somebody to encourage you, Mason was that guy, okay? If you needed somebody to make you laugh, he was hilarious. Loved him. You loved being around him. Very few people like that, honestly, in your life, that you just love being around them all the time. Like as much as Mason would let you, you love being around Mason. And he hung out with us guys. Mason had an issue. Mason loved to be in circumstances where he would either start a fight or get in a fight, and Mason could not fight. Not at all. Like, he was just unable to fight. So, and he didn't do it like you know, like you might suspect like somebody that can't fight, they might be brave around other people. Like when we were all out together or something, that's when he's brave and he starts fights and we have to bail him out type thing. No. He can be simply by himself and later on we just find him. He's just been beat to a pulp. You know, like it didn't matter what the situation was, he's going to get in a fight, and he could not fight. But a lot of times he would be around us, and we learned as we drew closer to him, like, and we would tell him, like, stop doing that. You can't fight. Like, you don't have the ability to fight. It's just much healthier for all of us if you just stop. Like, you have control of that mouth of yours. Stop. Right? But he just didn't. And so a lot of times, because we loved him so much, when we went out, somebody always made sure they were with Mason so that we could bail him out. It's not a bad thing to know that you're weak. It's not. What happens is if you honestly realize that you're weak, if you honestly realize you can't fight, then you start depending on someone who can take care of you. And you no longer are putting yourself in unhealthy situations or where you're getting broken all the time because you're unaware that you can't do that. I used to think that being a man was about being the strongest, most protective, capable Arnold Schwarzenegger there was, right? Like, you know, that's what I used to think. What I know to be true now is that being a man is leaning more and more into God because of my incapabilities, my weaknesses. I'm worse than Mason. I'm pretty incapable of doing anything on my own. I need God in every circumstance. I do, because I'm fragile and I'm weak. I've used this example before, but it's the only example I really know how to give you, is that a long while back, back when my babies were babies, I used to smoke. I smoked like all the way through. I mean, I smoked all my life. Like, I was a little kid when I first started smoking. Yeah, that's what you did in Georgia, you know? If you were ready to come out of diapers, you were handed cigarettes. No, but you know, I smoked. And my parents did not want me to smoke, by the way. They didn't have anything to do with that. But I smoked, and then as I went into the military, I smoked. You know, I always smoked. And when I got married, Mary did not want me to smoke, but I couldn't quit. I tried, and again, I've shared this, but she scared me to death one day. I mean, I tried the patches, I tried the gum, then I went to the doctor, and they're giving me something to help with the cravings for smoking and stuff, and then, you know, my wife's in the medical field. I swear, she just freaked me out one day. I come in there, and I'm taking this medicine, I'm like, you know, I don't feel good, I feel on edge today and everything, and she's like, well, explain to me exactly how you feel, and I'm like, okay, well, I feel on edge. And she said, She said, I just want to make sure, because now that medicine they got you on and everything, it's rare, but some people flip out and you might kill the whole family. I was like, well, I'd just rather smoke. I didn't know that was on the table, right? I don't want to wake up and be in the news because I killed my whole family. Smoking's better, So I was always losing this battle with smoking because I was trying to do it in my power. It's like, I can do this. I know I can do this. And I would stop for like a week or two and everything. But then I'd pick it back up because it was just something I craved and it was something I depended on and I was addicted to it. As we're addicted to so many different things. And I'm only using this as an example, right? I was addicted to it. And truly, I was weak when it came to that, because when there was a stress that came up or there was something going on, I just need one, and before long the whole weekend went by and I'm back smoking to the same level I was before. It was a failure. One day I'm listening to this message, and it's not like I hadn't been listening before. It wasn't like I wasn't praying for this before or anything like that. I really wanted to quit smoking. But one day it all just kind of clicked together. I was facing this thing that I really, really was struggling with, and I really, really needed Jesus. And that sounds so crazy in a way, but that's what I really needed. And I remember thinking at that moment, it clicked in my mind, I'm not going to try to quit smoking. It's not going to be about me anymore. I'm going to give it over to God. This is something I want in my life. This is something that I deem to be healthy in my life, and this is something I'm committed to, so it's not going to be my struggle, it's going to be His struggle. And every time I crave for a cigarette, I'm just going to pray instead. Because what cigarettes do is they don't just suppress it sounds like I'm having a campaign against smoking. That's not what I'm doing. But this is a personal journey for me. It can be the same with anything that we're addicted to. Anything you're addicted to has control over you, and it's your God. Understand that. Anything that is that much of a priority, you have made an idol in your life. And that's what I'm talking about. And I had made smoking an idol in my life. And what smoking does is, it helps you with weight, it helps you lose weight and everything, but that's not why you smoke. You smoke because it makes you feel good. You don't even stress about a lot of things. Like something's going on, all of a sudden you can light up a cigarette and you don't care that the building just blew up. You know what I'm saying? Oh no, all of a sudden, somebody can walk by and they're making a noise and you're like, you're frustrated. You start smoking and they can be blowing up the whole block and you're like, well, that's something, all right. So you go to it to calm you down and everything. Well, what I decided is that I'm giving this over to God. I'm not going to struggle anymore. I'm too weak for this struggle, and I give it over to God. And every time that I have a craving, I'm going to pray to God. First couple of weeks, man, I was a praying man. I'm praying all the time, and it really did. It helped me grow. And I use that as an example just because whatever it is, it doesn't matter what it is. It can be your addiction to pornography. It can be your addiction to drinking. It can be your addiction to drugs. It can be your addiction to just your anger, jealousy, anything that you have, but we all fight things. We're all broken. And we're all weak. And we're all trying to face those things in our own strength. We're going to continue to fail. 1 Corinthians 1, 27 through 29 says, but God chose what is foolish in the world to shame the wise. God chose what is weak in the world to shame the strong. God chose what is low and despised in the world, even things that are not, to bring nothing things that are, so that no human being might boast in the presence of God. God chose us, and we're weak, yes. But God chose us so that He might be magnified, and that we won't fail. When He's the one that's using us, we won't fail. The comfort in being weak is that when we know that, we lean into God more. Also, the comfort of that is knowing that this is exactly what God desired in my life. This is how He made me. And that leads into the next one, is that we're made by God. When we're jars of clay, somebody has to, listen, if you've never seen this before, Pastor Anthony in the back, he works with like clay making stuff and everything. I probably could too, and it would be amazing, but I can't, I don't. But he does, and they are very amazing. But when you make something out of clay, somebody shapes that. That's pretty cool to me. You ever had anything that you look on it and you want to know where it's made? Like made in the U.S. or whatever, you know? There used to be this commercial back in the day, I don't know, they may still do it, but used to be that, you're just going to get used to the fact I'm a random guy. There used to be this commercial, Fruit of the Looms. I don't know why we're talking about underwear, but that's where we're going. But Fruit of the Looms, there used to be this commercial where like the fruit would come out and there'd be grapes, the grape guy and the apple guy and all this stuff and everything. They're like, Fruit of the Looms. And at the end of it, they would always say, inspected by number 12 or whatever number they would say and everything. And what they meant by that is like the quality was inspected, right? Like when you bought this at that particular time, it was top quality because it was inspected by someone. Listen, guys, we're made by God, right? Like if you could turn up and look at the bottom of your feet and there was a stamp there, it would be like made by God. No inspection necessary. Because you're made perfect. All the things that you see as flaws, all the things that you see as wrong, you were made perfect. Jeremiah 18:1-4 says that the word came to Jeremiah from the Lord, arise and go down to the potter's house, and there I will let you hear my words. So I went down to the potter's house, and there he was working at his wheel, and the vessel he was making of clay was spoiled in the potter's hand. And he reworked it into another vessel as it seemed good to the potter to do. The potter is God. And here's the beautiful thing about that message that really just stands out to me. Like, right? He's gotten this thing, right? Picture Anthony, and Anthony's in his little workshop, and he's making it and everything, and all of a sudden he looks at it, and he's dissatisfied with it, okay? This is how sometimes we think God was, right? He made this. God shaped us and made us. And what do we think? That God looked at it and go, whoops, Susan, I'm sorry. Right? Like, yikes, this is what we got. No. The potter reshapes it to what he wants. You know what that means? That means that he wanted you as you are. Okay? Was it like he was stuck with you? Oh no, I didn't want her to have that wart. No. You are who God wants you to be, and you're perfect. You're perfect. This is what God wanted. Now, I don't know, I have a house full of girls, and it drives me nuts. Because you know what girls' problems are? They can be the most beautiful individuals in the world and they have no self-confidence. I can't understand it for nothing in the world. I wake up every morning, not some mornings, not Mondays and Thursdays, not every morning, and when I pass by the mirror, I'm like, man, Mary's lucky. That is one lucky woman. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't understand, because I get it. God made me exactly right. You know, like I'm very happy. Don't want to trade places. I'm happy with who I am, but girls, they don't. It's a hard journey for a guy when you're in a house full of girls. I tell you that right now. But maybe that's encouraging to you. God made you exactly right. Potter didn't make any mistakes. And the cool thing about being designed by God is that he designed us for a purpose. In Isaiah 29:16, it says, you turn things upside down. And this is the prophet, and he's talking about people that are looking at God and they're looking at him wrong. You turn things upside down. Shall the potter be regarded as the clay, that the thing that made should say of its maker, he did not make me, or the thing formed say of him who formed it, he has no understanding. No, we don't say that back to God. We don't have the right to say that back to God. God knew exactly what he created us for. He created us for perfection. I mean, the way he wanted us, and he created us with an intended purpose to carry out. Another cool thing about being made by God is that He made us from the inside out. That's how you make a clay pot. From the inside out. And that's pretty important because it's what's on the inside of us that affects what's on the outside of us. And that's what's so different from a lot of the things that we find in the world, whether it's religions or educations or whatever. We're told that we need to get everything that we do on the outside right so that we can do something. No. God shapes us from the inside out, and it's our inside that affects our outside. God doesn't say, okay, listen, I want you to get those sins cleared up in your life, and I want you to stop doing this with your hands and your feet and your mouth and your actions and everything. God doesn't say that. God says, I'll meet you right where you're at, and we'll start dealing with those things inside your heart. I accept you. I accept you. And I'll work with you. In Matthew 15:18 says, Jesus said, but what comes out of the mouth proceeds from the heart, and this defiles a person. It's the things inside that affect us, for good or bad. Inside out. That's the way we're shaped. But all those things are true of a pot of clay, a jar of clay, of us. Those things are true. We're common. We're all more alike than we think. We're all fragile. We like to look around and think, okay, well, I'd like to believe that everybody else in the world's got their stuff together and there's hope for me. But the truth of the matter is we're all fragile. But also the truth is that we're all made by God. Those are all truths. Now the cool thing to think about with a pot of clay, a jar of clay, is its purpose. Back in the day when Paul was talking about jars of clay, they're so common, they're so inexpensive, they're so easy to get hold of that you could have walked into anyone's home, rich or poor, and you would have found jars of clay. And they would have been used for all different kinds of purposes. From plants to holding flour to holding excrement. In every home. Poop. Poop. Jars of clay can hold anything. They can be filled with anything. Okay? And it doesn't matter. It doesn't really add to anything. If you take this jar right here of clay and you were to paint it or etch it or whatever, it's not going to change it. It's not going to fill it. You can take this jar of clay, right? And you can travel all over the world and all of a sudden there's stamps all over it. This jar has been on this journey and has went everywhere. It's still not going to complete it. It's not going to fill it. So no matter what I'm really pointing out, no matter in your life, no matter what you adorn yourself with, or how much you work on the outside, no matter what your journey is, and I don't care what that looks like, whether it's a career or education, relationships or whatever, no matter what your journey is, it doesn't fill you. And you'll never be complete until you're filled properly. In Ephesians 5:18, Paul says, and do not get drunk with wine, for it is debauchery, but be filled with the Spirit. Be filled with the Spirit. Be filled with your purpose. Or you'll never be complete. There's nothing wrong with you. The things that God's calling us to be glorifying Him, the things that God's calling us to, they might be scary, they might be challenging, but there's nothing wrong with you. As a matter of fact, you're perfect. You're perfect for the task. And when I say you're perfect, I don't mean that means that you're making perfect decisions. It doesn't mean that there's not sin in your life. But you're perfect for the task that God has for you. God has a desire for you and in His will to accomplish. And you're capable of doing that in Him. You are made capable to do that in Him. Are you willing? Because God gives us the choice. You can fill yourself full of anything that you like. And you can pursue everything in the world. And you can live another 50, 60, 80 years before you come back to me and tell me that those things didn't complete you. Or you can perk up your ears and listen. There's nothing that's going to complete you other than God. Nothing. Are you willing to fill your cup this morning? This morning I'm going to ask Heath to come down.